everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ansley. Welcome to the first out of 3 reading vlogs for this book, It by Stephen King. So I have 3 reading vlogs coming out for this book, basically just because it's such a long book, and I did vlog myself reading this book, and I ended up having like 2 hours worth of footage of me discussing this book and talking about it. So I have 3 videos for you. This will be a full spoilery reading vlog. I go a lot in depth about what happens in this book. So if you want to read this book, I would read it first and then watch these videos. If you just want to know what happens in this book, then I would just watch these videos. I hope you enjoy. On to the first part of the reading vlog. It's time to do an update on this book. It's currently like 9 o'clock right now. I've been reading for about like an hour and a half, I think. I've been annotating a little bit. You can see my tabs. Let me just say, I way underestimated how much I was gonna be able to read of this book, because let me show you this. This is my It reading schedule. I showed this on a TikTok and a YouTube short, but I was talking about this. Basically, I made this schedule scared that like I would start it and it would take me so long, and I wanted to try to get it all done as fast as possible, like as consecutive as possible, because I feel like when I'm reading books for so long, it just like affects the story for me. Like I get bored. That's why I read multiple books at once sometimes, and I feel like with this book, like I was even worried because it's 1,100 pages and I had planned for it to take me this whole month of June, but now I feel like I can finish it by next week. Anyway, so I did the math, and to finish it in the month of June, I needed to read 40 pages a day. So every day I have like every day of the month of June, and I just read 40 pages a day, and like it says part 1, part 2, and then halfway done on the 15th, and then part 3, part 4, and then the last few pages, like part 5, and then finished it. So every day I was gonna mark them off, but I've been sitting here, I've already read 40 pages. I'm on exactly page 40, and I want to keep reading. Like, I'm definitely going to keep reading. I did start reading with the audiobook, so I've been reading with the audiobook and following along, and I really like that I did that, because Stephen King, like, some of his like wording and stuff is hard to understand, or like when Bill is talking with his stutter, or like when Pennywise is talking, like I knew, because when I listened to Pet Sematary and followed along in the book, I really liked doing that, and I feel like I get the story so much better. Anyway, so I've been listening to the audiobook. I have like 30 hours left, which isn't bad, and I feel like I could finish this way earlier than I predicted I could finish it. Basically, I've read the first 2 chapters. The first chapter opens exactly where the first movie opens, with Bill making Georgie a boat, and Georgie going out in his yellow raincoat and his red shoes, and he's running down the street with his boat. Also, this is going to be a spoiler reading vlog. I will be talking about everything that's happening in this book, just so you know. I feel like everyone knows what happens in this story anyway, but this is a spoiler reading vlog. I have seen both movies. I've seen both of the recent movies. It Chapter 1 from 2017 is in my Letterboxd top 4. I love that movie so much. But yeah, the first chapter is exactly what happens in the opening sequence. Georgie in his boat, and then at the end, Georgie gets his arm bitten off. But the clown that they described, Pennywise, is described like Tim Curry's It. Like, he's wearing like this like rainbow outfit, and he has all these balloons in his hand. So he's not like described, like he's like white with the red on his face, but his outfit is like rainbow kind of thing. Anyway, and then the second chapter was the opening of the second film. So that was with the two guys on the bridge. One gets thrown off and the clown eats him. So that was the second chapter, which is interesting because I didn't know like it's jumping around. Like the main storyline, like we haven't even gotten to the kids. We haven't even gotten to Stanley and Richie and Bill and all that yet. Like we haven't gotten there yet. Okay. So yeah, we're getting to that first. I'm literally 3% of the way through right now, but I'm loving it so much. I'm so excited and I really want to read more. I'm gonna go make a snack and then dive back into this. I don't know how much I'll be able to read tonight. We'll see, but I will update you guys when I have updates. Hello everyone, good morning. I thought I would do a little update for you. It is June 2nd today. I have some updates for you. Last night I stayed up really late last night and I ended up reading the whole third chapter, which was like 4.5 hours long to listen to. It was 100 pages. So this is where I am in the book now. I'm currently on page 144, and we're about to start Derry, the first interlude. Let me just go through a little bit about what has happened so far. I've read almost 150 pages. Also, I would like to say, this is such a great update actually, because on my calendar, I'm supposed to read 40 pages a day to finish it in the month of June. So yesterday I was supposed to read 40 pages. Today I was supposed to get to page 80. Tomorrow I was supposed to get to page 120. And then by Thursday I was supposed to be on page 160. And I'm currently on page 145. So I'm like 3 days ahead. So this is going actually really great. I really didn't take into account how easy this would be to read and get into, and I think it's so easy to get into because I know the story already. Like I know a majority of what is going on, and like when I'm visualizing the story in my mind, like when I'm reading it, I'm thinking about the movie. But anyway, so it took 3 chapters to get to where we are now. The first chapter was Georgie and his boat, Georgie getting murdered in the fall of 1957. And then it jumps to 1984 with Adrian Mellon on the bridge getting thrown off by that group of kids and him getting eaten by Pennywise, and then all the people, like all the witnesses saying that they saw a guy in a clown suit, which is the opening sequence of the second movie. Funny because yesterday when I was talking about the first part of this chapter where it says Stanley Uris takes a bath, I was like, oh, that's such foreshadowing based on how he dies. But yeah, it literally went into him dying actually, because this takes place in 1985, that chapter. 6 phone calls is in chapter 3, 1985. So that's basically when Mike calls all the members of the Losers Club and tells them it's happening again and they have to go back to Derry. First chapter was 1957, second chapter was 1984, and then third chapter was 1985. And I think the Derry first interlude is gonna go back. Yeah, it goes back in time a few times, but they, like all the losers, it goes through like, he calls Stanley, he calls Ben, he calls Eddie, he calls Bill, he calls Bev, like he calls them all, and it shows where they are. And I really liked that. Like I liked it, and every time they got the call, like they would remember what happened in Derry, and they like remembered Henry Bowers and like getting bullied and stuff. Going back, and that's where we are now. I'm gonna read. I have my coffee, I have my book, and I'm just gonna dive into it, see how far I can get into it today. Hello everyone, I'm here for an update time. Also jump scare, all my nails fell off. So yeah, it's the next day, my hair is wet. I'm wearing the same sweatshirt that I've worn in the past 1,000 clips, but it is the next day, it's June 3rd. And I have some updates for you on it. So I didn't end up reading any last night, and it's like the evening now, it's like 7 o'clock, and I haven't read anything today because I've been busy. I had a minor commitment at 2 p.m, so I've been in waiting mode all day. Anyway, I have some updates. I'm currently 220 pages in. I just read the part about Ben to June of 1958, and then chapter 4 says Ben Hanscom takes a fall. And basically I liked something about that chapter is in the beginning, it's the adult Ben on a plane, and he's like drifting into sleep. He's like super drunk and he's drifting into sleep, and as he's like falling asleep, he's remembering more and more of his childhood in Derry, and then he like falls asleep and you get to see like what he's talking about. And it's the scene like when school lets out for the summer, and he also, Ben is such a sweet character and he gets made fun of so much, and it's so sad. But yeah, he gets out of school, he has a little conversation with Bev, and he's in love with Bev, and then he walks to the library, he reads his library books, he writes Bev a poem or a haiku, and he puts it on a little post-it card for her, and then Henry Bowers finds him and carves an H into his stomach. I'm sure you know that happens. It's so sad and heartbreaking. It was just so sad, actually. And so then Ben like he gets away, he starts running, and then he like sits in this hole under this tree, and he starts falling asleep, and he's thinking back to like past things, and he's thinking back to when he like helped this teacher move books. Like they were moving books somewhere, I think they took them from the library or something, and then he went home, and he was going home and it was really dark, and this was in like the dead of winter, and he saw Pennywise, and he was like, this thing that happened last January that I can't tell my mom about, because his mom was telling him, Ben's mom was like, you need to be home before 7 because the curfew is at 7. And he was like, if only my mom knew about what happened in January, I can't tell her. Having a great time with this. This next chapter is called Bill Denbrough Beats the Devil. And I love Bill, so I'm gonna get started on this. I'm just gonna read, I'm gonna sip my bubbler, and it's gonna be a fun time. Everyone, good morning. It is now the next day, it's June 4th. I have my giant coffee here. We're just gonna read a lot today. So let me give you all a little update on the book. So I'm currently 290 pages in. Last night I read the chapter about Bill last night, and I read the chapter about Mike. Mike's chapter was interesting because Mike's chapter, he like went to the Kitchener Ironworks where a bunch of kids exploded like 50 years before. Like there was a whole tragedy and like all these kids exploded. So he went there and he was scared that he was gonna like find remains of kids or something, but he ended up like coming across this giant bird thing. Like there was this giant bird creature that like terrorized him. That was interesting, wasn't expecting that. There was also this little bit about this missing boy, Eddie Corcoran, and it like told you the whole story like in newspaper clippings. Like let me show you. They're all like different newspaper articles about this missing boy, and Mike like is walking. Mike is like, I felt like this need to go to this park today, rides his bike to this park, and he finds Eddie Corcoran's like pocket knife, and like he sees blood on the floor, and he's basically at the scene of the crime, and he doesn't know, but we know, but he doesn't know. And Eddie Corcoran was murdered by Pennywise. Again, we only know that, they don't know that. And then we had the whole thing about Mike with the bird, which was interesting. I thought it was an interesting way for Pennywise to show himself. But this next chapter is called The Dam and the Barrens. Almost at page 300. I want to get to page, 400 today. We'll see. dark. I just have a really quick update before I go to bed. I just read a really cool chapter. Chapter 8, Georgie's Room in the House on Nebel Street. It was a really long chapter, but it was really cool. So it was from like Richie's perspective. And what happened was, I think I already told you about Bill looking at Georgie's photo albums and like the photos bleeding, which is obviously Pennywise. But Bill is like telling him, like the losers, about what happened, and Richie is like, ooh, like I want to see that. Like he is curious. So they go to Bill's house and they're looking at the photo album. There's a giant blood stain on the photo album, and like they're looking through it, and all of a sudden they can't find Georgie's picture. Like it's not there, it's gone, and replacing it is like pictures of Bill and Richie like on Main Street and stuff, and there's like things happening, and like Pennywise shows up in the picture, and all of a sudden Bill like puts his hand on the surface of the photo, and his hand is like dissolves into the photo, and then like it gets super cut up. It's crazy. Like freaked out, and Eddie tells the Losers Club the story about him and the leper, like the leper at the Nebel house, like chasing him and stuff. And Bill is telling Richie, there's so many names, I get them mixed up, but Bill is telling Richie that he wants to go to the Nebel house and like check it out and see if what Eddie said is really there. So they go, and they're like, they sneak into the basement of this house. Why would you do that? Anyway, so they're in the basement of this house. It's like a coal, like there's a coal furnace and like a coal, like, I don't know, there are piles of coal in this basement. And all of a sudden the basement door opens, or it's Pennywise as the Wolfman walking down the stairs, because Richie just saw a movie with Ben and Bev, and it was like a Frankenstein movie and then like a Wolfman movie, or like, I think it was like the Teenage Frankenstein and then the Teenage Wolfman were the movies that they saw, and he was like super scared. Pennywise is shape-shifted into the Wolfman, and he's chasing. It was crazy. It was so crazy. I'm gonna go to bed and then more tomorrow. Hello, good morning everyone. I have an update for you. Look at how good my coffee looks today. It looks amazing. Anyway, so it is the next day. It's June 6th. On my calendar, on June 6th, I was supposed to be on page 240, and currently I'm on page 440. So we are 200 pages ahead right now. I feel great about it. I just read the chapter called Cleaning Up. It was Beverly's chapter. It was her account of like her Pennywise showing himself to her. Happened basically, it's very similar to the movie, but she is like in her bathroom and she hears voices in the drain, and they're the voices of the missing kids. And she's like, there has to be like someone else in this apartment. Like there can't be, voices. And then like a giant balloon looking bubble comes out of the drain, and it pops, and it's blood, and there's blood everywhere. And I love how it looked like a balloon, like the red balloon. Anyway, so then like her parents can't see the blood, no adults can see the blood, but she can, and she brings Ben, Eddie, and Stan into her house with her to see if they can see it, and they can also see it. So then they clean it up, and then they have like all these rags, and they're like, we need to go wash them. And Stanley's like, let's go to the laundromat and like wash them. And then while they're sitting there at the laundromat, Stanley starts to tell them his story with Pennywise. And his story, Stanley is such a sweet character. I love Stanley as well. He was talking about how he heard news of a male cardinal, like the bird, in this park. And he went to go try and find it because he's a birder. Stanley loves birds. He has his bird book. He was walking home, and he came across this giant like standpipe that a bunch of kids died in like years before. And he heard like a noise, so he goes in and he starts to hear like carnival music and like smell popcorn and stuff, and he's like, there's a carnival at the top of this standpipe. But then a bunch of dead little boys show up and start like chasing him out of the standpipe, and he can't get out. And then he starts shouting bird names at them, like the names of bird, like cardinals, and like he's shouting bird names at these little dead boys. And all of a sudden the door opens and it throws him out. So that's interesting. That's where we ended up. I'm really liking it so far. I just hit Derry, the second interlude. This chapter is about like 40 pages. I'm gonna get started on this. I do have somewhere to be at 2 o'clock today. It's like 11. So I'm gonna try to finish this chapter up and then read more tonight. Hey guys. So I want to do an update really quick. I just read Derry, the second interlude, and it started on Valentine's Day 1985, and it's basically Mike, and he's like going through the pros and cons, and he's like, I need to call them, and he's talking about 2 disappearances that have happened in the past few weeks, and one is a little girl and then one is a teenage boy, and he's saying that the police force in Derry is like, they just ran away. But Mike is like, it does not make sense for these kids to run away. Like, they had no reason to run away. So then he's like, it's only a matter of time. Like, I need to call the Losers Club back. And he's like going through the pros and cons. He's like, do you think they'll remember me? Like, all that stuff. And then he's going into like an account of a fire that happened in the 1930s in Derry. It's called the Fire at the Black Spot, which his father was in the fire. Like, his father was there because his father was in the military at the time, and it happened at a military club. Okay, so Mike's father is sick and dies of cancer, and Mike's father, Will, is like telling Mike the story of the black spot on his deathbed, because when he originally told Mike that there was a fire at the black spot, Mike was like 11, and he was like, I'm not going to tell you this story for at least a few more years. So when Mike is 15, his father is dying, he goes to his hospital bed, and Mike's father starts telling him the story. It's a very sad story, talking about he was there with all his friends, and then there was a Klan in the town, and they burnt down the club. And then he's like, Mike's father, Will, is like, I saw something. And then he starts coughing, and he like doesn't tell him what he saw. And then Mike goes to fill up his dad's cup of water, and he comes back and he's like, so what did you see? And his father is like, I saw a bird. And he's like, I didn't tell anyone about the bird, but I saw a bird. It says, I sat there in silence, thinking he had gone to sleep for sure this time. I'd never been so afraid in my life, because 4 years before I had seen that bird. Somehow, in some unimaginable way, I had nearly forgotten that nightmare. It was my father who brought it back. And then his father said, it didn't hover, he said, it floated. It floated. There was a big bunch of balloons tied to each wing, and it floated. And then my father went to sleep. Isn't that so cool? Like, his father saw the bird and Mike saw the bird. Anyway, so then Mike is writing all this down. And he's in the library. He works at the library. He's in the library. The library is closed. It's like 10 o'clock at night. Or 3 in the morning, sorry. It's 3 in the morning. And he goes to sleep, and then he wakes up and he sees tracks, like muddy tracks on the ground. And he's like, okay, someone was here when I was asleep. And it says, whatever it was, it came to me in the night, left its talisman, and then simply disappeared. And then he says that it says, tied to my reading lamp was a single balloon filled with helium. It floated in a morning sun ray, which slanted in through one of the high windows. I reached part 3. Part 3 is called Grown Ups. Leave this and try to get halfway through tonight. I believe halfway through is like 525 pages. I'm on 478. So my next goal is to get halfway through. So I just read that chapter called Grown Ups. That was a long chapter. It started on page 478 and just ended on 540. So that's like 58 pages, something like that. I really enjoyed it. It was the scene where all the losers come back and they meet at the Jade of the Orient, the Chinese restaurant, and they have lunch, and they're just talking about like what's going on, and Mike is telling them why he thinks it is back. And you learn a lot about like what has happened to Derry since the summer of 1958. It's been like they've torn down a bunch of stuff that was there when they were kids, and they've put in like a lot of new buildings and stuff, and it looks like I'm almost halfway through. I enjoyed that. They just like, I love like their dynamic as friends, and that was what a lot of this chapter was, just them like catching up on each other's lives and stuff. And Mike thinks that they should all split up for the rest of the day and walk around Derry and go back to the place where they first saw Pennywise. Like for Bev, that would be like her childhood apartment's bathroom is when she first saw Pennywise. Or for Mike, that would be like the field where he saw the big bird kind of thing. So like they're just gonna walk around Derry and go back to places where they first saw Pennywise, and then they're gonna meet at the library. I'm gonna take a break, and then my goal is to get that chapter done today. Let's see how many. This chapter ends on page 620. So this is how long the next chapter is. That's crazy. Hopefully I will be able to start that and finish that today. We'll see. Hey guys, I thought I would update because I'm officially 582 pages in, which means I'm officially halfway through this book. Thank you so much for watching the first part of my reading vlog. The next 2 parts will be out in the next few weeks, which include me reading the ending of the book and my final thoughts on It by Stephen King. So if you enjoyed this video, remember to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next week. Bye!